Do you have a pattern of going quiet, zoning out, or refusing to engage with your partner when you're upset? I know it's not because you don't care, but because you probably think that conflict is bad, or that you might feel overwhelmed or attacked, or you just have nothing really to say that's going to make anything better or come out right. But here's the thing you're missing. You think you're protecting the relationship by shutting down or refusing to engage, but your silence is sending a much louder message to your partner that is far more damaging than you realize. If you're new to my channel, I'm Dr. Scott Symes, clinical psychologist. I run the program Breaking Reactive Patterns, where I teach you how to break your dysfunctional patterns that are reactive and ruining your life and your relationships with your partner, your kids, or your employees. To learn more about my program, visit my website, drscottsyms.com, or schedule a discovery call with me. The links are below this video. And before we get started, make sure you smash down that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications for when I make a new video weekly. Now, when we talk about avoidance, keep in mind that these are things that everybody tends to do, but there are some people that have very dysfunctional patterns with this, and they are ingrained. And as a result of them being ingrained, they are ruining their relationships. Ask anybody who's in a relationship with somebody who's avoidant. It is very difficult for them to operate because they really can't get anywhere. And personally, I've done the same thing. I've been there. I've shut down. I've avoided. In fact, my avoidant pattern began way back when, in my teens, where, I had a lot of fawning in my childhood because I had a father who was rather, loud and intimidating, and he scared me in a lot of ways. But then when I became a teenager, I just simply started to avoid interactions. I stayed gone. I was working or going to school and then working full time. And I remember one moment when I was about 17 years old as my senior year, and I decided that I wasn't going to play basketball because I was trying to save money for college. And I wanted to continue doing my job, and I just simply couldn't do my job and play basketball and go to school. So I decided that I was going to quit. And that was a conversation where I was threatened to be kicked out of the house. And that was a conversation that he attacked my character as a person. And it's a situation that I will never forget. That was pretty pivotal in my life. Even though he apologized and we've made up and everything is okay now, it taught me to shut down. It taught me to start avoiding because I didn't want the conflict. So that avoidant pattern that a lot of people have gets started in these dysfunctional interactions. And I'm going to go into all of that. But first, let's talk about the problem. The avoidant reaction pattern, or as I like to call it, flight energy or escape energy, literally looks like running away from any kind of danger, driving away, leaving a room, walking away. But more commonly, in our relationships, it's more of almost like figurative or more of metaphor, like running away inside of myself. That looks like shutting down a conversation, refusing to engage in that conversation, just simply stonewalling the person and not talking. Distraction from any kind of responsibility and what needs to be done, getting overly involved in work, your friends, your habits, your hobbies, drinking, using drugs, using video games excessively to avoid or escape uncomfortable topics and feelings. It also looks like dissociation, like literally sitting in a room where your partner is talking to you about something that's concerning to her or him, and you are just simply someplace else. Like you're not thinking about what they're saying at all. You are literally completely almost daydreaming into a different state. When we're trying to change these patterns, we have to understand how this physically feels, the sensations of escape energy or avoidance energy. When we're trying to change these patterns, we're trying to get in touch with how this sensation feels in our bodies. This is the escape energy or the flight energy and how it actually feels in our bodies so we can recognize it, because everything about psychology, when you're trying to change your patterns or you're trying to change yourself in any way, everything begins with recognition and awareness. The most common ways that I hear people talk about flight energy is it's this vibrational energy. This intense desire to get away, to escape, to leave, to distance, to disconnect, to get out. This can actually make a person feel physically trapped, like they're a claustrophobic or are almost held hostage to a conversation, and it can result in panic attacks. So knowing that sensation is key to knowing when you are in your flight energy, because again, your awareness is key. You can't change it if you're not aware and making the connection that this sensation is connected to this desire to escape. And we have to correct that desire Flight energy also might look like excessive autonomy. So disconnecting in psychologically and emotionally from a person, saying things like to yourself that I don't need anyone. I want to be left alone. I don't need anybody to care about me. Or you might adopt a victim mentality that says that, your partner is doing this to you. She or he is causing you to feel this way. And therefore, if they would change, then maybe you would change, which completely negates any kind of responsibility and it puts everything on your partner. So how did you get this way? In my program, I teach you not only how you got this way, but how to transform these patterns and move completely away from them, building yourself into what's called the healthy adult and the person that you really want to become. To know how you became this way, one of the first things you have to understand is something called the adaptive patterns or adaptations. We adapt to survive. Children specifically are completely dependent on their parents and their caregivers, and they have to adapt to their caregivers to survive their circumstances. I know survival sounds like a really big term, but what I mean by that is to stay connected, because if we are connected to our caregivers, then we get shelter, food, water. We are nurtured and taken care of. But what happens when our caregivers are not really well-regulated people? They're not emotionally regulated people. You adapt to those dysfunctional patterns to stay connected to them. So you have to look back to your childhood. This is where you were trained and where you were programmed on how to use these interactive patterns to benefit you. So ask yourself, during my childhood, what was actually happening inside of my home? When you're looking back at this, you're simply looking back at it to understand your history. Simply what happened, not as a way to blame or accuse, but to understand. What was your response style to being called names or being in conflict, having raised voices, harshness, criticism, being blamed or shamed, or any kind of aggression? Now remember, most of us were not raised in an environment where we would say this was the norm. But keep in mind, even if this is just 10% of your interactions with your family members, it matters. Kind of like if you have a friend and every time you're around that friend, you have a great time, except every once in a while, your friend punches you in the nose. Those few times that your friend does this is going to completely overtake all of the positive interactions that you've had with that person, because it breaks down your trust, it breaks down your connection. You fear that person and their reactions. So we have to kind of understand that reactivity is at the source of all of the dysfunctional patterns that you have, and that reactivity can be traced back to the ways that you were raised. Now, this could have happened at home. This could have happened at school. This could have happened with your friends or your siblings. But regardless of where it happened or who it happened with, it likely evoked a fear response inside of you. And that fear response helped teach you to adapt, because you just simply couldn't control the circumstances, especially when you're a kid and you're dealing with adults. Or you're a kid and you're dealing with kids who are much bigger than you. Every child is built and wired for love, connection, and nurturance. And when we don't receive this, we resort to survival so that we can stay connected. That survival is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which means that we sacrifice our authenticity, who we are, in exchange for that connection, because connection is more essential for survival. As a child, when any of these things happened to you, you likely adapted to this dysfunction by going to your room, hiding, leaving the house, spending time with your friends, or you maybe psychologically withdraw. You would numb out, try to distance yourself as much as possible, like I did. I just stayed at work. I stayed away from my house. You might, kind of dive into video games or smoking pot or getting away from it in some way or another. This actually solves the problem. It solved the problem of the conflict inside your home, but it robbed you of your ability to learn the skills on how to deal with your own feelings that this brought up and with the feelings of anyone else. Since you never really learned the skills to manage your own emotions and the conflict, you carried that into your adult life and you're still likely using it today. And while this avoidance works, in your adult life, it damages your relationships. So let's talk about what are the hidden messages that withdrawal, disconnection, avoidance sends to your partner and the people that you care about and love. When you walk away or you shut down from your partner, you're sending them the message, you don't matter. You're communicating indifference to their feelings, their opinions, their needs, their wants, even if it's unintentional. When you withdraw and you shut down, you send the message, I control the terms of this connection. That's going to leave your partner feeling manipulated or punished. We all need connection. Just like you did in childhood, when you refuse to connect with your partner, even when the tensions are high, you're leaving your partner out in the cold. Your partner is struggling with something and you decide if they're allowed to come in from that place of struggle. Where is your partner left to go when they feel shut out? First, they stuff their feelings down and build resentments. They shut down closeness, affection, and intimacy because they don't feel safe with you. They don't want to be close and intimate with somebody who does this to them. Or two, on the extreme end, they may search for connection with other people. Or three, they surrender. They resign themselves to your dysfunction and you guys just end up as roommates. Healthy relationships require conflict. Conflict is necessary. When you believe that conflict is dangerous rather than necessary in a healthy relationship, you decide what problems are going to be solved and which ones will not. You use your own dysfunctional patterns to block conflict, which creates even further escalation in your partner, or it teaches your partner that you're not going to bring these things to me. You're not going to bring up issues that are important to you. And again, that's going to create resentment and start shutting them out. So what are the consequences of this interaction style? What is the harm? All of this erodes the trust and emotional safety that is required for a healthy relationship. It teaches your partner that you're not there for them and that the relationship is one-sided. It creates a hierarchy in the relationship where their concerns are not as important as your feelings. It forces your partner into protest behaviors like chasing and escalating and criticism, because they're trying to be heard. They're trying to bang on the door, trying to get your attention because they feel shut out. Just as much as I said earlier that everybody needs two things. We need a lot of connection in our relationships and we need to be authentic. And this anxiety drives their fears up of a loss of inability to be themselves. They can't tell you how they feel. They can't tell you what they think. They can't tell you their opinions because you have a terrible reaction to all of that. It also makes their fear go much higher because of the lack of connection, that you're literally distancing yourself from them and that they have to be the way that you want them to be in order to stay connected. All in all, this builds in a very destructive power dynamic in the relationship where one partner becomes the gatekeeper of connection and the hierarchy gets embedded into the relationship and forces your partner into a corner or walking on eggshells to get their needs met. Over time, intimacy dies, resentment grows, your partner feels abandoned while still in the relationship, leaving them and you feeling completely lonely, disconnected, and angry. You have to understand that the way you're reacting is slowly poisoning your relationship, and you need to wake up to how you're suffocating what you value the most. Now, I understand if you're listening to this, you might say, well, they do it to me too. Okay, that's because every relationship is reciprocal. You affect your partner affects you. So if you are doing this, they might do the same thing. And it's not about them changing because you have no control over them changing. It's about you changing. You have to take responsibility for yourself in order for the relationship to have any ability to go in the direction that you want it to go. And you have to understand cause and effect, that if I act this way, it results in my partner pulling away from me. She doesn't want to be intimate with me. She doesn't want to be close to me. He doesn't want to sit and listen to me because I shut them down. That's the effect of my behavior. Your behavior is not operating in a vacuum, that you act however you want and you expect that there's no consequences to that. That is simple-minded and completely irrational. Every behavior has a consequence, good or bad. So what do we do about all this? First step, as I said before, is self-reflection and ownership. You have to be able to take responsibility for yourself and recognize what you're doing. So let's first call out the good intentions of avoidance and withdrawal. You're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to avoid escalation and not make anything worse. But in doing so, the impact of that is damaging. So in order to start shifting things around, you have to validate what you've been doing to your partner, which means you need to get curious and investigate how that behavior has been making your partner feel. Now, if you're hearing this and just the idea of asking your partner this question of how this makes them feel makes you nervous, then you definitely need to build the skills to become the healthy adult, which you can in my program. Remember, anytime in any of my videos, when I talk about ownership or taking responsibility, this is in line with the 7 tenets of relational safety that I teach in my program. Tenet number 1 is I take full responsibility for my behavior and the effects it has on the people I love, whether intended or not. This tenet is integral to understanding healthy relationships, and it's also likely what you've either taught your children or you're currently teaching your children. You don't get to act however you want and disregard how you make other people feel, because knowing how you make people feel is empathetic. And that's a positive thing. The opposite of that is narcissism or narcissistic traits. I'm the victim. Whatever I do is right. If I hurt you, it's because you hurt me first. Hurting you is necessary to teach you a lesson. No responsibility, no empathy, and completely selfish. And it is absolutely not going to result in anything good for your kids or for you. So here are 3 steps that you can use to really get started breaking this pattern. Number 1, use a timeout with reassurance. I need 20 minutes, but I'm going to come back. While you're in your 20 minutes, you need to be focusing on what's happening inside of you, the emotions that you're feeling, and the story you're creating about the situation or about your partner. Once you identify that story, you need to challenge it. Don't just assume that your thoughts are facts. Don't just assume that whatever story you're making up in your head is absolutely true. Because when we're upset and angry, we have some really negative thoughts about the people that we love. So you want to engage your empathy. How am I making my partner feel in this situation? How would I feel if my partner did this to me? Number 2, practice co-regulation and staying present in the discomfort. That means validating your partner's feelings. Now, that doesn't mean you have to always agree with him, but you can understand that their feelings, how they feel about this situation, is valid, because that's what you want them to do to you. The more we focus on our partner's perspective and understand that their perspective is connected to their history, what they've been through in their life, what you've put them through throughout the years of your relationship, so that when you completely understand this from their perspective, you can understand then, how do I shift myself so that I can give my partner a new experience, a new emotional experience with me. And number 3, build your emotional vocabulary rather than going silent. Learn to talk about how you feel without blaming your partner for your feelings. I'm feeling hurt, sad, and frustrated because we're not on the same page. I'm struggling with feeling heard and valued right now. It sends me the message that you don't care. Now, that is a skill that you really have to practice. It's really difficult to learn that skill and then just start immediately implementing it, because when we're talking about breaking reactive patterns, we're talking about breaking through the programming that automatically happens inside of you that makes you defensive, makes you get dominant or shut down, or makes you people please. So these reactive patterns are ingrained, and that's why it's so hard to change them. But when you really want to shift yourself around and transform who you are, it's possible. When you learn how to stay present without withdrawing, you stop being the punisher in your relationship and you start learning how to be safe for your partner and for yourself, because safety is the foundation of your relationship, and every relationship desperately needs to feel safe and secure. If you're hearing yourself in this video and this pattern is present in you, then you are poisoning your relationships with the people you love and the people that you absolutely need in your life. I've got the antidote. Go to drscottsyms.com or schedule a discovery call with me. The links are below this video in the comments. I can help you get started today. Listen, just because you've had these patterns in your past, it doesn't mean that you're broken. You simply need new skills. I help people just like you break these patterns every single day and build relationships where both partners feel safe and secure. Thanks so much for watching.